Loving Liberty with Bryan Hyde.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Loving Liberty. I'm Bryan Hyde. Pat Oney joins me in studio producing today. We've got Mo producing as well, and a special guest joining us by telephone. We have Trent Loos on the line with us. Trent, welcome to Loving Liberty.
Well, now I feel left out, Brian. Had I known, I would have been in the studio.
Well, I was feeling pretty important here with dual producers. I'm like, I don't know if triple producers is even possible, but it's great to catch up with you again. We've had Trent on the program before, and about 10 days ago, I spent a couple days with him in Modesto, California, as part of a Range Rights and Resource Symposium. And Trent, that was my first opportunity to not only rub shoulders with you, but with a lot of other really great people. And one of the highlights of that event was Ammon Bundy came and spoke. Even though there were noisy protesters outside, he came and delivered what I thought was a very powerful message. And the reason I have you on Loving Liberty today is because I know there are people who still have questions about why did Ammon and why did the others go and occupy the wildlife refuge up there in Oregon, the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. And you recently penned a column about the plight of the Hammond family. And I'm of the opinion here, a person can't truly understand why that occupation took place unless they understand the incredible injustice that was done to the Hammond family.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There are many people that sit and ponder and say, why are Dwight and Stephen Hammond still in prison? And I'm one of those individuals because I've done as much as I thought I possibly could for the past 3 years to shed light on this misjustice. I mean, it's just so far from justice, it's unbelievable. Permission to burn 127 acres. That's what they got. They got permission to burn 127 acres. They prevented thousands of acres from being burned up by a wildfire. And then the government turns around and prosecutes them as terrorists for doing so. It just did not make sense at all. And so I've been digging, and there's been people helping me dig, and well, it's pretty unsettling, actually, Brian, what we've uncovered. And since that came out, that has sent me down a couple more paths, and that are tied to everything about what this whole concept of this program, Loving Liberty, is about, what you and I believe in on a daily basis. Our liberty is threatened, and we need to bring awareness to what's really going on.
Well, and I'm grateful for the work that you have done in connecting many of these dots. I want to ask you, as you travel the country, and I know you're everywhere, but when you encounter people who have opinions, even partial opinions, on that wildlife refuge occupation in Malheur, what do you wish they understood? Is there a consistent bit of information that always seems to be lacking from people's comprehension of what that was all about?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it, and I want to expand upon something you said in the introduction. I agree with you. Ammon Bundy's presentation was amazing. It was so heartfelt, and it really went to the core of what we believe in. And you also mentioned that there were protesters, and there were protesters outside, and that lasted about 15 minutes, because that's, number one, all the stamina that they had. But number two, there's a tremendous lesson to be learned in this, is that they quit protesting when the cameras and the media left. They're not there because they believe in something. They're there to find a way to capture media attention. And one of our fellow participants actually went out and talked to a few of those protesters. They were local people, and the reason they came to protest Ammon Bundy is because they understood that he occupied Malheur National Wildlife Refuge because he wanted to kill law enforcement officials and members of the military.
Wow.
That's what they were told. That's what they believed. And nothing could be farther from the truth. I was very fortunate to be at Malheur during that occupation. I moderated one of the town hall meetings on a Friday evening. Saturday morning, I spent about 2 hours at Malheur. And there's so many people, Brian, that just, they take at face value what they hear from biased reports. And unless you can see it, hear it, and taste it with your own senses, I don't think you truly get it. And that's one reason that I just loaded up and went to Oregon, because I wanted to understand what is really behind this.
Well, and it makes all the difference in the world when you go to the source instead of having to try to untangle what comes through that media filter and determine, okay, what's right and what's wrong and what has been left out is more often the case of what shades the reporting. Let's talk for a moment about the Hammonds, because I want people to understand that for Ammon Bundy to go up there and do what he did, that wasn't some flighty, spur of the moment, whimsical, yeah, you know what, I'm bored, let's go occupy this wildlife preserve. He saw what had happened to the Hammonds, and it struck a nerve within him that he could not deny. And let's talk about what the Hammonds' experience was and why this is an injustice that other people should be paying attention to.
So in October, don't hold me to the exact day, but it's about October 12th of 2015, Dwight and Stephen Hammond are resentenced after they have already spent their time for this burning of 127 acres. They're resentenced to 5 years each. And Ammon Bundy, like so many of us, said this is just not right. These guys have already served their time for what Judge Hogan had issued to them as a sentence, and here they are being resentenced because somebody within the Obama administration thinks they need to spend more time. That's absolutely wrong. So you asked me earlier what gets left out. This is a huge component of what gets left out of the entire equation. Ammon Bundy's first thing that he did was he contacted the county sheriff of Harney County. And he said, look, your job is to protect the citizens of your county. Are you going to protect the Hammonds from the federal government when they come for them? Because they were to report to Terminal Island in California, Terminal Island Prison in California on January the 3rd. And Sheriff Ward said, no, I'm not. And so then Ammon spent about 6 weeks talking to people in the county. He was in the county. He was organizing, trying to take the steps necessary to prevent this atrocity of injustice to occur to Dwight and Stephen Hammond. The last case scenario was that there was a protest in downtown Burns on Saturday. I hope my days are okay, but it was Saturday, I think January 2nd. And then Hammonds maybe were reporting on Monday the 4th. Don't matter the day of the, it was those are the day of the week, so that's correct. And there was a protest, and Ammon tells me himself that he received in a dream a message that he was supposed to go to this wildlife refuge, which he had never been to before, by the way. And so he and 7 other people went to the wildlife refuge after that protest. I got a lot of this firsthand from Butch Eaton, who accompanied them. He lived locally in Burns. He went there, and then after being there 2 hours, he decided this wasn't right for him. He left, and then Butch Eaton joined me and walked me through exactly how this took place. But that's why he went there, was he went there to take a stand to say, look, this injustice needs to stop. We're coming here to get your attention to make sure people understand. You need to know what's happened to the Hammonds because it could happen to you.
So let's talk about some of the things that were going on behind the scenes that prompted the government to take such a hard line with the Hammonds. I was under the impression that, so they had a backburn that got away from them, and because of that, the government went after them for, I don't know what it was, damages or just the fact that they had breached some government rule. I had no idea, though, that the federal government had actually offered to dismiss the charges against them if they would pay a fine that was, like 3/4 of the value of their ranch. Is that right?
That's correct. And that, by the way, has been redacted from the original court document. But the government made the offer that if you will just pay this fine, which was roughly $670,000, which Dwight told me personally that was equivalent to 75% of the ranch value at the time, that all of this would go away. And they just left it off because who would pay a $670,000 fine for doing the right thing? But as you look back on it and see, there's another part of this that people don't tend to understand. In the U.S. Forest Service and in the Bureau of Land Management Grazing Handbook, it clearly states that any permit holder of federal land who has a grazing permit cannot be held liable for fire on their permit because fire is a tool that's used to improve the resource. So what happened was that they knew, they being the federal government in the state of Oregon, knew they had no ability to come after the Hammonds on this particular charge because there was a direct stipulation in the handbook that said they're exempt. And that's why the prosecutors went after the 1996 Anti-Terrorism Act, saying that if you destroy federal property, you are considered a terrorist.
Okay, hold that thought, Trent. We've got to take a real quick break. Let me come back to you. We'll finish up this thought. I also want to talk about uranium and how this figures into the Hammond situation. Trent Loos is my guest. This is Loving Liberty. We'll be back right after this. And scene.
Weather's hot
And you know,
outside.
while we're at it, what we should probably do is promote the show while we're live. Like while we're live on Facebook, like we're in commercial break now, but we're still live here.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So like Loving Liberty audience, if you haven't yet, please go like the Who's Next page. Who's Next? Please go like the Loving Liberty page. And then, if you would, share our content. Share this video. Make sure it gets out there to the general public. People need to hear the story that Trent's telling us right now. And the more you like and share our content, you know, engage with us too. We're more than happy to get involved and to converse with you. And, as another upside, it lets Lord Zuckerberg know that we're okay. We're okay. We're all right. So,
Lord
if you
Zuckerberg.
would, please go and like both pages.
I love it. Oh, that's perfect. All right.
What do you think?
We're not keeping the phones as busy for you. I'm sorry about that.
That's good. That's all good.
No, I'm digging how Trent is filling in the blanks here on this story.
You still want to go to that recycling thing though at some point, right?
I will. Yep. Trent's only with us till the bottom of the hour, so when we come back from bottom of the hour, we'll talk about
You saw his
recycling.
that guy, the quote that he had at the end of the article, right?
I think so.
I think it might be good to include.
I understand I'm going to prison, yeah.
Wow.
It's,
I didn't just say something, I did it.
yeah, I like that.
That is good.
And he's walking the walk, obviously he's going to prison. Hopefully his lawyer can get him a better deal somehow.
Well, with him in there, right?
Sure sounds like the government wanted the Hammond's ranch. From what Trent's describing, you know, well, we'll drop the charges if basically you just pay us about 3/4 of what your ranch is worth. You'd have to sell it. You know.
It's your livelihood. That's the only ranch they have, right?
I think so.
Because I get that.
Yep.
Like they have 10 or 20, right? Hopefully.
Wow.
How many does it take to make a difference? When it comes to supporting freedom and liberty, the answer is 100 million. In fact, 100 million
100 million buckaroos paid to Rush Limbaugh. Oh wait, he got 250 million with his contract deal.
I was going to say, it wasn't more than that.
Yeah, only Glenn Beck would work for 100 million. No.
I was going to say, Rush probably takes the cake of everybody, right, in terms of...
Yeah, I think he's still the king. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Loving Liberty. I'm Bryan Hyde. Trent Loos is on the telephone with me today. Trent is a 6th-generation U.S. farmer. He's also one heck of an MC, as he showed in Modesto. And Trent, among the things that I have come to appreciate, your writing, and particularly an article you wrote for High Plains Journal about there's mining in Oregon, but not for minerals, talking about the Hammond family. So let me just come right out and ask you, did the government want the Hammond's farm, or their ranch, rather, from the offer that they gave them?
They wanted the Hammonds out of the way because the other component is that the Hammond family, really primarily Susie Hammond, was the best at holding the government accountable. And when the Hammonds had water rights, they would stand up to the bullies, being the federal government, and they would win every single time. And kind of to complete that summary, because I don't want to run out of time without the summary getting out, and then we'll back into all of the parameters that lead up to this. When I was in Burns that first week of January 2016, I sat at Susie Hammond's table, and we read this article that talked about the real reason that the Hammonds have been targeted is the uranium, and there's uranium under Hammond's ranches, and the government has sold that to Russia. So I'm here to tell you that I have no proof, zero proof today, that there is uranium under Hammond's ranches. But we know that the Steens Mountain, where this is the property that's in question, on the other side of the mountain, that there is uranium. We know that in Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, all around there, there's uranium. We know that Southeast Oregon has a tremendous amount of uranium that is going to be mined in somebody's mine at some point in time. And Hammonds, who continually are willing to stand up for their rights, were an obstacle in continuing to pursue and further the cause to mine the uranium from Southeast Oregon. And I say that because if you look at all of the players that were involved, Greg Brutzig, who was the FBI agent in charge, is now working for a global transportation company that, Brian, I'll let you guess what one of the components that they transport around the world is.
That wouldn't be uranium, would it?
It just so happens it would be uranium.
I'll be darned.
The wealthiest man in the United States today, Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, which, by the way, was the first publication in the United States to say, no, there's no tie between the Clinton Foundation, Uranium One, and the Russians, which later was proven false. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post and tried to poo-poo all of this information from the start. And, by the way, guess what his major investment in his future bright shining star in investing in?
Would that be uranium?
Nuclear energy, which means uranium. You have Neil Cornsey, who was the director of the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, the director who's basically making the decisions on who does what with the BLM land and their permits. And his father's a guy by the name of Larry Cornsey. Guess who he works for?
Well, this is unfair, but I know he worked for the federal government, the BLM specifically.
Neil Cornsey worked for the BLM, but his father, Larry Cornsey, worked for mining businesses and was hired to go to Canada to pursue, for the Clintons, uranium.
That's very convenient.
You have one other individual by the name of Peter Thiel, who, ironically, is a Republican, has been very involved and continues to have the ear of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. He made his money in the Silicon Valley. He was one of the first investors into Facebook. He owns a company that has a surveillance program in place that was used to monitor the happenings, particularly on Facebook and in the general area of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. All of those surveillance tapes were used in the trial in Portland to convict the Bundys, which obviously did not work. And guess what Peter Thiel's newest and most innovative investment is in? Nuclear energy, utilizing uranium. In fact, partnering with Jeff Bezos, who was a major contributor to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign in 2016. So you've got players on both sides of the equation. And by the way, Peter Thiel is very excited about the future of nuclear energy and using uranium. He's also the one who has the contract to track down the illegal immigrants in this country through surveillance. So he's very tied to the White House. He's very tied to Donald Trump's administration. And for a long time, because I will say that I'm a member of a Trump Ag Advisory Committee, and I was trying to use my channels to the White House to get this information about the Hammonds presented so that Donald Trump could see what was really going on. And I now believe that he's been getting bad information from people who are vested in the uranium business. Hammonds were viewed as an obstacle in mining uranium from southeast Oregon, and all of that leads to two gentlemen in prison, so that the family is crippled in standing up for their rights, and ultimately the rights of other ranchers, because as long as they sit in prison, it is a deterrent from anybody else to stand up for what is rightfully theirs against the federal government.
That's a beautiful summary. I'm just sad that the Hammonds still are sitting there. I mean, look, I don't put a lot of faith in politicians generally, but I really had kind of hoped that maybe there would be some kind of clemency extended, from the White House. How much longer do the two Hammond men have to spend behind bars?
Stephen, the son, actually has 2 years because he was in twice as long the first time, and Dwight has just short of 3 years. He's 80? He had a birthday in January, so Dwight would be 83 or 84 right now.
Wow. I can't believe he's that old and this is happening to him like that. That's crazy.
Are there any other...
I misspoke. He's 74.
Oh.
Are there any other... is there any other recourse that the Hammond family can take to see about getting these men freed? Or is this just, the bureaucracy is that they have to serve it and, that there's nothing more can be done?
It is the bureaucracy, and there are channels that they can pursue. The problem being, and any attorney will tell you that, yes, we can do the work. Best case scenario is that 2 years from now, we'll get the rightful justice that we're looking for. How many $1 million later, and then they'll be at the end of their sentence anyway. I'm not saying things are not being done, Brian. I'm just saying it's a catch-22. The time, the effort, the turmoil, the stress of pursuing all of those things. There were clemency papers that were handed to the White House 2 weeks ago. We're just waiting for something, honestly, some divine intervention to step in here again and say, it's time to fix it.
All right. Well, we're down to about a minute left in this segment of the show. Trent, you do great work. Tell everybody where they can find your work, where they can follow what you're up to.
LoosTales.com is the best place. I do produce 5 radio shows on a daily basis, and that's LoosTales.com, LoosTales.com. And I just appreciate the opportunity, Brian, and I really applaud you and thankful that you continue to plug away. Loving liberty. We need more people to stand up for liberty. That's the bottom line.
Well, I'm grateful for everybody who's in the fight, and I think I hung with a lot of really good people, 10 days ago. Ammon Bundy is one of those individuals, and I just hope that people can draw better from what you've described here about the Hammond's plight. I hope people can better understand why Ammon felt that need to go and make a stand on their behalf.
And the sacrifice that he made for another family, 2 years, primarily in solitary confinement, to stand up for a family who he knew was being wronged. Absolutely.
Trent, God bless. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Next time I want advance warning so I too can be in the studio.
Okay. we will make that happen. Loving Liberty will continue right after these messages.
Oh, that's even at 70. What do you say, 74? That's still crazy.
Okay, what does this comment say?
And don't forget to bring along the refreshing sound of K-Talk Media.
Just far enough that I couldn't read it without my glasses. Too far for me to read with my glasses. I'm doomed. Doomed!
Changes happening in the law.
All
My name
right.
is Allison Johnson, and I'm an attorney with Peace Legal Law Firm. I work with individuals and families in handling their immigration issues. You have certain rights and protections under the law, and I believe you shouldn't be afraid or timid to exercise those rights. They are in place to help and protect you. Our website is www.
That was loosetails.com. Is that what you
Yep,
called?
LOOS.
Here in Utah,
TALES.
Salt Lake City,
Oh,
San
so it's his name.
Florida,
Yeah, Trent
and
Loos.
Spanish Fork,
And his
to make
T.
it convenient for you to meet.
How do you spell tails?
TALES, like Canterbury Tales.
Gotcha.
876-5297. My name is Allison Johnson, and the phone number is 801-876-5297. 5297.
All
Call
right.
me for a free consultation. Llámame. Se habla español.
Peace Legal. We're a refreshingly different type of law firm. Other law
Oh,
firms
that makes me
charge clients
sad.
by the minute.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes you're afraid to call
The
your
Boy
lawyer
Scouts,
because you're worried about the
yesterday,
cost.
today,
Not with Peace
tomorrow.
Legal. You have
Yeah.
the option in most cases between
Yeah.
hourly billing and flat fee billing.
For those who
Flat fee
can't
billing,
see,
you know how
it's,
much the case will cost up front.
like
One flat
the,
fee,
Boy
no
George
hidden costs
Scouts.
and no charges to speak with your lawyer. We specialize in family law.
Are you familiar with,
adoptions,
you're familiar with Matt
divorce,
Walsh, right?
agreements, and enforcement of custody
So
and
he
support
actually
orders. We also work with
wrote a
businesses and
column
nonprofits,
for the Daily Wire about
planning,
this,
contracts, and
or he
employment.
did a video or
We also
something.
handle what we call
And
life
he
law
said
matters.
that,
These are those
you know,
cases
boys
that arise
need
just by living life, buying a home,
to be able
rental
to have
agreements,
something to
power of
themselves.
attorneys,
It doesn't need to be
and
all
traffic
inclusive to
law
girls.
matters. We have 5 offices
I agree
in
with him.
Durham,
Like,
Ogden,
boys
Salt
should be
Lake
able to
City,
go and do
San
things
Diego.
that boys do.
Visit us at peacelegal.net.
I also think girls should be able to go and do things that girls want to do. Like, it doesn't have to be all gender inclusive all the time. And that's my biggest problem with the whole Boy Scouts thing is like, why does this need to be inclusive?
Peace Legal. We're a refreshingly different type
I just
of
can't
law firm.
imagine why it's considered good that they had to change and lower their standards. Not that, you know, not that the boys are better than girls and always will be. It's not that.
That's not
It's
it
just,
at all.
but it started with, you know, you need homosexual scoutmasters, you need to accept homosexual scouts, and it's like, why don't we keep that stuff out of scouting, or at least keep it private?
Right. Why
That's-
can't we just do that?
that's-
You know,
Just let scouts focus on scouting and not.
go enjoy the outdoors. Go learn what it means to survive and do different things outside, and leave it at that. Like, why does politics and social justice need to work its way into something that
Which is a good
where it
question.
doesn't even belong? So,
But by gar, it's going to work its way in there.
Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call us at 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or check us out online at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
All right. Welcome back to Loving Liberty. I'm Bryan Hyde. Pat Oney joins me in studio, and Mo's around here somewhere. We had him really hopping last hour. We had so many phone calls coming in. That was great. Everybody's earning their pay today, and if you'd like to join the conversation, you can do so at 801-254-1640. Just want to clarify for those who may have been jotting down some notes. It was Trent Loos, Loos. That's who we were talking to in the last segment, and his website is loostales, LOOSTALES.com, loostales.com. There you have it. Okay, want to talk about creating criminals where there were no criminals?
how do you do that, Brian?
Add government, mix it all in, and it will eventually happen. No, it comes from bureaucracy and over-regulation. I think most of us would agree, yeah, we don't want criminals out there just having free run of everything. Justice demands that they answer for acts that have harmed or defrauded other people. But that doesn't sound like the case here. Of a Southern California man, an electronics recycling innovator, who is going to prison for 15 months. You ready to hear what he did?
Uh-oh.
Because he extended computers' lives. Here's the story. Southern California man who built a sizable business out of recycling electronic waste is now headed to prison, federal prison, for 15 months after a federal appeals court in Miami rejected his claim that the restore disks he made to extend computers' lives had no financial value. Instead, they ruled, nope, you infringed on Microsoft Corporation to the tune of $700,000, off to prison with you. The appeals court had upheld a federal district judge's ruling that the disks Eric Lundgren made to restore Microsoft operating systems had a value of $25 each, even though the software they contained could be downloaded for free and the disks could only be used on computers that already had a valid Microsoft license. Now, the U.S. 11th Circuit Court of Appeals initially granted him an emergency stay of his prison sentence shortly before he was to surrender, but then they affirmed his original 15-month sentence and $50,000 fine without hearing oral arguments. That was a ruling issued back on April 11th. So here's what he did. Lundgren is a 33-year-old innovator in the field of electronic waste, or e-waste, and he was using discarded parts to do things like build an electric car, which in a test far outdistanced a Tesla on a single charge. This guy built the first electronic hybrid recycling facility in the U.S., turning discarded cell phones and other electronics into functional devices, also slowing the stream of harmful chemicals and metals contained in those devices into landfills and the environment. His company, Chatsworth Company IT Asset Partners, processes more than 41 million pounds of e-waste every year, and they count IBM, Motorola, and Sprint among their clients. The judge actually looked at him and said, "Hey, this is a difficult sentencing because I credit everything you are telling me. You are a very remarkable person." Now, before he launched IT Asset Partners, Lundgren lived in China, learning about the stream of e-waste and finding ways to send cheap parts to the U.S. to keep electronics running. One of his projects was to manufacture thousands of what are called restore disks, supplied by computer makers as a way for users to restore Windows software to a hard drive if the hard drive crashes or has to be erased. Now, those disks can only be used on computers that already have a license for the Windows operating system, and that license transfers with the computer for its full lifespan. But computer owners often lose or throw out the disks, and though the operating system can be downloaded free on a licensed computer, Lundgren said he realized that a lot of people didn't feel competent to do that, so they just threw out their computers and bought new ones. Well, Lundgren had 28,000 of the disks made and shipped to a broker in Florida, and the plan was to sell the disks to computer refurbishing shops for basically a quarter apiece, so the refurbishers could provide the disks to used computer buyers and wouldn't have to take the time to create the disks themselves. Also, the new user might be able to use the disk to keep their computer going the next time they had a major problem. But in 2012, U.S. Customs officers seized a shipment of disks and started investigating. So the disks were never sold. Eventually, the Florida broker, Robert Wolf, called Lundgren and offered to buy the disks himself as part of a government sting. And Wolf sent Lundgren $3,400, and the conspiracy was cemented. Both were indicted on a charge of conspiracy to traffic in counterfeit goods and criminal copyright infringement. Wolf made a plea deal. He got a 6-month sentence for house arrest. Lundgren pleaded guilty, but he argued the value of the disks he made was zero. So there was no harm to anyone. Neither Microsoft nor computer manufacturers sell restore disks. They just supply them free with new computers and then make the software available for free downloading for anyone who's paid for the software and received a license, typically a sticker with a certificate of authenticity number on it. Lundgren said he was just trying to make the disks available again for those who needed them, and that they could only be used on licensed computers. Not good enough for federal prosecutors, who said, no, we would value those disks not at a quarter apiece, but at $299 each, or the cost of a brand new Windows operating system. So, they alleged in the indictment that he had cost Microsoft $8.3 million in lost sales. By the time of sentencing, a Microsoft letter to Hurley and a Microsoft expert witness reduced the value of the disks to $25, saying that's what Microsoft would charge refurbishers for the disk. But both the letter and the expert were pricing a disk that came with a Microsoft license. These sales of counterfeit operating systems displaced Microsoft's potential sales of genuine operating systems. That's what Microsoft lawyer Bonnie McNaughton wrote to the judge. But Lundgren's disks had no license because they were intended for computers that already had a license.
So wait a minute. Let me just get something straight here. They're complaining that he was making disks for licensed computers.
Yep.
That were valued at what? How much did you say again? It was like 8 something? Was it 8 million or 8?
Yeah, 8.3 million when they valued them at $299 a disc.
Okay, so, but you could download this software for free?
Yes. if you had a licensed computer. And those were the only people that those discs were intended for, were licensed computer owners.
So what's the difference? I can either download it for free for my licensed computer, or I can buy this disc from this guy for my licensed computer.
Yes.
What's the difference here?
An excellent point. Now, Glenn Wedock is a former expert witness for the government in its antitrust case against Microsoft. He was asked, in your opinion, without a code, either product key or certificate of authenticity, what is the value of these reinstallation disks? His answer, 0 or near 0. And Lundgren's lawyer asked, well, why would anybody pay for one? Wedock said, well, there's a convenience factor associated with them. Still, Hurley decided that Lundgren's 28,000 restore disks had a value of $700,000, and that dollar amount qualified Lundgren for a 15-month prison term along with a $50,000 fine.
Wow.
The judge said he disregarded Wedock's testimony. I don't think anybody in that courtroom understood what a restore disk was. But, yeah, 15 months in prison. Now, look, if there was some kind of criminal intent, that would be one thing. But this was innovation. And this is one of the reasons why I guess I'm becoming such a strong proponent of what's called permissionless innovation. Instead of going to government with hat in hand as if the default position is we must always go and say, please, sir, may I have more, to do whatever it is you want to do. You should probably just figure out a way to do it, assuming that it's not hurting anybody or their property, and then, ask for forgiveness later.
If I'm this guy, I'd be appealing this case because this does not sound like a fair trial to me. If people in that room didn't understand what he was doing and what these discs actually are, this doesn't sound like a fair trial. It sounds like somebody just wanted to put somebody in jail.
Yeah, pretty much. And in fact, the three-panel judge of the 11th Circuit, when they were hearing the appeal here, they deferred to Hurley in his judgment that this Wedock, who was the expert witness, was not credible. And while experts on both sides may have identified themselves in identified differences in functionality in the discs, Hurley clearly did not err in finding them substantially equivalent, or so they said. Randall Newman, who was Lundgren's lawyer on the appeal, said there was no basis to seek a rehearing from the full 11th Circuit. Lundgren said an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court would be a very costly long shot. But if you want to know how do you create a criminal where there is none, that's a pretty good test case right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be back on Loving Liberty right after this. Looks like my daughter made good time in coming to pick me up here today.
When the weather's hot outside,
What's he charged with again?
Cool
You said
off
copyright
with
infringement or
splash.
something.
It was
1648.
conspiracy.
Oh yeah. Now that's
Yeah, conspiracy to traffic and counterfeit goods and criminal copyright infringement. I will get to his quote though in this next thing because that is a great quote.
I just don't see how he could have infringement if he's already doing it for licensed computers. If he wasn't doing it for licensed computers, then it's a whole different story.
Or if it was a hack to to get
To
around
bypass?
licensing.
Right.
Yeah.
He's providing a service for people that aren't technologically inclined to do this themselves.
Yep.
Otherwise, they would just download it for free and have done it already. I don't see the problem.
It makes me so angry. I just want to stop using computers altogether. No, I don't. But that's crazy.
The justice system is flawed.
My daughters should be wandering in here shortly.
You gonna have them on the air?
Nah, probably not. I don't want to put them on the spot, but my little girl, my 9-year-old, she's been on the air with me before. And actually, I think my audience liked her best. They said, "Man, she was a hoot."
What was the topic?
It was her birthday, and so we were talking about what she wanted for her birthday. Well, I'd really like a puppy, but I'm like, well, we already have a couple of dogs, so we probably shouldn't get another. And then she was describing our dog. I'm like, tell everybody about our dog JJ. What's he like? She's like, he stinks. If you lean down to talk to him, it's like opening up a garbage can and taking a big. I'm like, that was a really good description.
I think she would talk him up. That's funny. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, she's a funny girl. Well, time flies super fast when you're getting tons of calls. And that's a hard story to generate calls on, but it's because there's so many details. But
My name is Garrett Smith, and I'm a lawyer with...
And by the way, for those that are listening too, like this story comes from the LA Times.
yeah,
So it's not exactly known for being conservative.
let me throw the story on here. Those of you following on the Loving Liberty live feed, I will add the two stories we were talking about earlier. I'll add them in the comments as soon as we're done here.
I could also add it later in like just a general post if you want. We do that too. I think both ways.
Actually, you did for one of them.
I did. Actually, I already posted this story on Loving Liberty.
Perfect.
So
Perfecto. I like Garrett's comment to the added shipping and handling costs to the judgment. Ouch.
That's like insult to injury, man.
That's what they did, man.
Call me at 928-282-4908.
All right, here we go. Home stretch. Once again, welcome back to Loving Liberty. I'm Bryan Hyde. I'm here with Pat Oney, who is producing for me today. Also, Mo taking your calls at 801-254-1640. Just a couple final thoughts here from this Los Angeles Times article about this Eric Lundgren, who was charged with conspiracy to traffic in counterfeit goods and criminal copyright infringement. This for making up startup disks that were only for people who already had a current Microsoft license for their computers. Now, apparently, Lundgren's lawyer said that the court had set a precedent for Microsoft and other software makers to pursue criminal cases against those seeking to extend the lifespan of their computer. And Lundgren says, I got in the way of their agenda. This profit model that's way more profitable than I could ever be. So they wouldn't be buying new computers. And that's why.
This is what it boils down to, is that he's basically making those big computer companies lose money because people aren't buying the new computer. Because let's be honest, who honestly wants to go out and buy a new computer every so often? I mean, it's a lot of money. I'd rather save money and fix the old one and make it last longer than have to go out and buy a new computer all the time.
Hear, hear. And thank you for somebody who had the innovation to figure out, well, this is an easier way to do it. But Lundgren said he wasn't sure when he would be surrendering. I thought this was interesting. He said prosecutors in Miami told him, well, you can have a couple of weeks to get your financial affairs in order, including plans for your company of more than 100 employees. But he says, I was told if I got loud in the media, they'd come pick me up. Lundgren said, if you want to take my liberty, I'm going to get loud. Now, the spokeswoman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami declined to comment Monday of this week. Lundgren said on Monday, I am going to prison and I've accepted it. What I'm not okay with is people not understanding why I'm going to prison. Hopefully my story can shine some light on the e-waste epidemic we have here in the United States. How wasteful we are. At what point do people just stand up and say something? Well, he says, I didn't just say something, I just did it. Good for him.
You know, that's great for him. I really hope he appeals this bill, because what's being done to him is wrong. He shouldn't have to serve that 15 months.
Yeah, it's, you know, the precedent, and it starts to look a lot more like, well, you may have interfered with the cash flow of some very large corporations who have more than a little bit of influence in shaping the legislation that they want. In other words, they can buy the legislation that they want and have it enacted, you know, through lobbying and through supporting the re-election efforts of certain legislators.
Well, you know, if they really want to fix this, if they really want to stop guys like this from being this innovative and creating a new avenue to save their technology, then maybe these companies should also innovate some more to actually help people out and to make it more of a competition rather than ooh, let's just take out the competition and throw them in jail.
I can understand the need to want to sell new products. I mean, look, I have Apple products, and I have a love-hate relationship with their planned obsolescence. You know, there comes a point where you can't update the software anymore. But for the most part, I think it works out well. I have a hard time faulting somebody who finds a better way to extend computer life and, you know, make it so you don't have to get in there and buy a new one. Let's go to the phone, 801-254-1640. Ray, welcome back to the airwaves.
Thank you, Brian. Did you want to talk about this computer situation, or go back to the last hour and talk about the tribalism and this country and the mess we're in?
Well, if it was a good enough topic that it has, figuratively stuck in your craw since last hour, let's talk about that.
Awesome. Okay, well, I can do the first one really quick. Maybe I can do that. This guy was going to jail. You know, I don't know the legal term, but maybe for lack of experience, I'll call it entrapment. So these undercover agents that went and bought these discs, they were not going to use them. You know, and so really when they bought them for whatever price it was, do you know what price it was, by the way, or if not, that's okay.
$3,400.
Okay, they bought it for $3,400. Okay, but it's entrapment because actually they were not worth $3,400. They were not buying them to use. And so I don't know who set the price, but see, actually, if they turned around and said, okay, here, we have these for sale, you know, and you, whatever price they were going to sell them for, I don't know, $1 or whatever, but if, you know, just for convenience, but if you don't want convenience, you can download them for free. And so really, they could prove what the price of them is by putting them out to the public and seeing what the public's willing to pay for them. Obviously, they're not worth $300. No person in the right mind is going to pay $300. Would people really pay even $25 for them when you can do it for free? I mean, part of it is to establish, you know, what the value of them, you know, what they are.
Right.
And of course, the value is zero. You know, but wouldn't that have lessened the charge if they could have established that the value really isn't that much because nobody in the public is going to buy them?
I have kind of a rule of thumb for any time federal conspiracy charges are leveled, my mind automatically translates that as the reason they're charging them with conspiracy is because they didn't have evidence to make real charges stick.
There you go. There you go. You know, so then, you know, maybe the citizens need to know about nullification. When we see our fellow citizens and the law is being used against them in an unjust way, and we can see it's unjust, you know, power to the people, I mean, of the people, by the people, for the people. If we have a sense of justice. Now, when we see that justice is, we want justice to prevail in this country. That if injustice is prevailing, don't we have a right to nullify and say, hey, this isn't right here?
Well, you and I believe Patrick, we would all say yes, we do. But there's a whole system that is very determined that no, you guys can't do that. Only someone wearing the black robes of a justice or a judge can possibly understand this. And we know that's complete malarkey. Our system wasn't set up to be government by the experts.
Well, and the only way I can see, at least from a legal perspective, I mean, I'm no legal expert, but the only way I can see for Mr. Lundgren to get out of this mess is to appeal it. And, you know, he'll get a different judge and all that sort of stuff if he appeals it. But his sentence is 15 months. His appeal could take longer than 15 months. So, I mean, either way, I mean, he's between a rock and a hard spot. So it's wrong, but like I said, if I'm him, I would at least try.
Something I appreciated that Ray pointed out. Ray, by the way, thank you for your call. Actually, I guess it was Mo who pointed out. Sorry, Mo, I was going to give Ray credit for what you pointed out. This is a very innovative young man. This Eric Lundgren obviously has drive. He has brains. And notwithstanding the fact he's going to be sitting in prison for 15 months, someone recognizes talent. And it's my sincere hope when he gets out of jail that someone snaps him up and puts him right back to work, doing what he apparently is very good at doing.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I have had to learn. It used to be I would associate. If you were to tell me, hey, do you know so and so has been to prison or so and so has been to jail? Immediately I'd be like, ooh, well, don't want to associate with somebody who's been in prison. But in the last few years, I have come to understand that just because somebody has been to prison is not an immediate condemnation or an immediate indicator that, oh, this is somebody bad who you should not in any way, know or associate with. In fact, more often than not, I'm finding that there are a lot of folks who have sat in jail unjustly. And some of the best people you will ever meet in your life may very well have sat behind bars, not because they're a bad person, but because the system that they are
with a lot of people that have been behind bars, and it's they're not all bad people. Some of them went in when they were, but when they came out, totally different person. It's not a condemnation of their character just because they've been behind bars.
I like Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a guy who spent some time in the Gulag, in the former Soviet Union, made the comment once about how to stand for truth is nothing. For truth, you must sit in jail. And I think that he said that about as well as it could be said.
No kidding.
So think twice before you condemn people who may have been behind bars. Frankly, there may come a day where we may be wondering, why aren't you behind bars? This is where all the good people are. I hope that doesn't happen. Hey, thanks for joining us for Loving Liberty. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And end live video. Ending live video. Finish.